Hello, welcome to another video here on the main channel where it's nice here. The other places that I'll be posting, it's a little more formatted. Here it's very free flow. I like that. So I'm going to talk about what's been happening with the business recently, our next steps that we're going to take with our AI models, some really cool progress that we've had in terms of potential funding, why it particularly matters for us and why that's exciting. So, and also our growing team, which is always very cool to bring in great people to the team. So here are the exciting next steps that we're taking. Let's start with the new team members that we have. So recently, after doing some interviewing, we've onboarded a new iOS engineer. Very excited to have him join us. Really great communicator, very positive person, and I think will be a great match for us to work with. And that brings our team to 3 iOS developers, which is awesome. I mean, we had our one legend and he was doing a great job, Mohammed. Then we brought in Sandro. He was working very well with Mohammed. And now we have Chris. So we have this incredible team that's come together for the iOS development. That's a huge bit of progress for us because, I mean, all of these pieces need each other, but none more so than iOS. Because if you don't have people to write code, nothing is going to happen. And especially that they need to be specific to the iPad because that's what we're developing on. So they need to be not only developers, but developers with iOS Swift UI experience to be able to develop. So we've grown the team in that way. That's really exciting. That's one of the big things that's happened recently. In addition to that, we don't just have a developer, new team member, but we've brought in 2 new interns from Texas, which is really exciting. I enjoyed conversations with them over the course of their interviews, just getting a sense of their personalities, and especially that from them I get the impression that they don't allow people to dictate their reality. One anecdotal story I could share with you is that one of them was talking about how he had become a journalist, because that's what is his vocation, that's what his profession is. He's an incredible writer. And he said it was particularly because when he was younger that some teacher had said to him, your reading level is so low, something to the tune of like, you're never going to make it, like you're going to have to practice so much that it's kind of a lost cause, like find other things that you're better at. And he took that personally and made it a sticking point to become that thing that people said he could not. And I really respect that. I respect people who do not allow others to dictate their reality. They'll decide for themselves. And then you get these kind of things happening where somebody told that they could not be a writer, they become one of the best writers in the world, you know? Great success story in that regard. So I'm really excited to work with them. They'll be assisting us with our marketing, and as you might guess, one with a journalistic background, he'll be assisting with like writing a whole bunch of different stuff for us. So whether it's the sort of content that we post on our channels, or it's these articles that will go across our company website, the product website, they're going to lend a great hand to that over the summer, which is awesome. 2 have joined currently, and then we have 1 more. She seems like a rock star, and she'll be joining us a month later. It's just scheduling kind of thing for her, but the 2 of them has started. So our team has grown by 3. So in total, we have 10 people as a part of the team now, which is just wild to me that that many could come together. To build the Dreambook is really, really exciting. So the team stuff, that was huge. We've rounded a major bend in terms of consolidation because our team size had very much fluctuated, trying to get the right person, couldn't find quite the right fit. Keep looking, have to part ways with another person, keep looking, find somebody who really clicks, okay, we've gained that much more traction. So the team building is really important to me. It's, I was watching, you know, say what you will about Steve Jobs, he might not have been, I don't even think might, like there's so many sources that confirm that he was not a very kind person. I've read this book called Creativity Inc., and the guy who founded Pixar, who ended up working very closely with him, sort of echoed that same sentiment. But you would not deny that his business sense was really good. And he often talks about like the most important thing that he could do other than providing a vision for people of direction and what exactly it is that they would work on was to hire the right people, get the right people involved with what it is that you're trying to do. There could be nothing more important. And I tend to agree with him on that point. I think if you hire the right people, provided you have the vision, then everything else can take care of itself. So this has been crucial. A crucial part of my role for what I do is, interviewing the right people, finding the right people for the team. And I'm glad to say that we're having a lot of success with that. And it fills me with glorious purpose. I'm really enjoying that. So considering next things that I could talk about, go into a little bit of depth. Maybe the fun one to start with, as I'd mentioned at the beginning, was funding. Funding is, of course, very important to us, to any startup, to any business. Money talks. And so for us, we have managed to circumvent that so far by offering equity in our company. I've talked about that before. We have to be very careful with this because you need to make sure that whatever your plan with your equity, because you only got so much of a pie to slice up for people, that if you were planning to bring in investors later, that there is enough that remains for them so that you have some sort of meaningful amount left over that doesn't dilute everyone's portion of the company that you've already vested to them too much so that they now have nothing of worth anymore. So we've done that. But then what remains? What are our overhead costs? So we've had a few. There is our surveys. So because we want it to be research driven, that means that we've done market surveys with the demographic that we're thinking we'll use Dreambook. And that was parents of children 3 to 8. That's who we're looking at to begin with. And that's a particular group. Obviously, it's North America to begin with that we're going to target. That's the group that we'd like to put the app in the hands of. So we had that research to do in terms of functionality. That is not a small cost. The service that we used was called SurveyMonkey. So, I mean, you're not talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you're throwing down a few dollars to be able to get several hundred respondents from that, which we did. Our research now totals 1,000 respondents from the surveys that we've done. That was one cost that we had. Another cost that we have, of course, is that you want to have like an actual proper domain. So we have chroniclecreations.co. That means that anybody in the company needs to have an email address, and every single email address that you pay for or that you assign to someone is going to cost you money. So I don't know the exact conversion, but Canadian dollars, it's $11 per person. That's another cost that we have. These, though, are minor. They pale in comparison to how much will our application cost to run. So you're going to make a choice whether you're on Google Cloud or you're using AWS and NVIDIA GPUs. You got to make a choice there. And it might be minimal to begin with, but you can expect as you scale up and you have success with this, that cost will increase significantly. So the cost of our infrastructure, the cost to run the app itself is huge for us. Therefore, any sort of credits that we can get which allow us to run the app more affordably, because we were just given these credits to use the AWS service or Google Cloud service, is super helpful. So I think I mentioned in another video, but it bears repeating now, that we applied for the AWS Activate program. And after a little bit of back and forth, we got approved for it. And they approved us for $1,000 US. Great for initial testing. That's awesome. We applied for the Google Startup program because we use the Google Business Suite, as I mentioned, for email. And they awarded us $2,000 in cloud credits that you could run your infrastructure there. And as well, they've now given us the Google Business Suite that our emails for the next year will be free. So we could have up to 300 different emails in the company. We'll never reach anything like that. But just to know that you have that room is comforting. And that's another cost saved. We went into this is where it gets like more exciting about the funding stuff, when I'm quite jacked, as it were. The conversation that we had with the AWS account representatives went very well. So we met with a good, knowledgeable dude, and we met with a quite knowledgeable woman. The gentleman was the sales rep, and the woman was more the technical rep. And you want to appear legitimate when you go into these conversations, and I believe through my background and kind of overall sense of the product that we're building, and then to have my CTO there, Andrew Schools, we were vetted and proved ourselves that we're legitimate. We're not just playing around trying to get free credits to mess around with AWS infrastructure. We're serious. We got a release date. We got a great team together. This will become a reality. And pardon me. Something useful that came out of that was we were informed that AWS partners with NVIDIA because, as it turns out, these graphics processing units, the GPUs that would power your infrastructure, they're actually NVIDIA GPUs. I didn't realize that. So NVIDIA has a program called NVIDIA Inception. And Inception, whereas we got this first $1,000 of credits from AWS, NVIDIA Inception, if they approve you for their program, they will often approve people who are pre-funding, so people who have not yet found investors, for still a very reasonable amount of $10,000 to $15,000 in AWS credits. That's a big deal for us, and it's kind of a natural next stepping stone that it would increase what we're able to do and how we're able to scale from an initial group of kind of testing that we're doing and then out into the wild where you would expect we would have actual paying subscribers, and now we're getting more traction and we're starting to scale up and grow. That's really helpful for us. So I've gone through the process of applying to NVIDIA Inception. There's always a little bit of back and forth with these companies, and they auto-rejected us. I was like, what's going on? This is weird, although it's not so weird. We got auto-rejected by Google Startups, we got auto-rejected by AWS, and I had to provide them more information. It was just particularly weird in this case because when I found out the reason that they auto-rejected us, they said it was because you need to have a functional website, which is odd because we do. So if anything, although that is odd, I feel it is good news because we can meet that requirement as we already have it. So let's have another chat NVIDIA Inception program. That would be great. But then the knock-on effect of this, the additional benefit is that I got it into my head finally where I had been applying to different venture capitalists, different angel investors to try and find funding for the program. I'd done this from the sort of platinum tier cash level investment. I thought that's what you go for, right? You just go for funding. But when we have people working for sweat equity who are essentially founding members of the company, and we don't have that same overhead that other companies would as a startup, if we get AWS credits, that's the world to us. So what I should be doing is I should be looking for accelerator programs. They call these, like, for those who know, you know, for those who don't, you have these programs called accelerators or incubators, and they're for people who are running a startup, and they're just supposed to get you going with a little extra support. Maybe it's an office space, maybe it's AWS credits, many of the other ways that you could assist someone when they're just starting out. Maybe it's mentorship. This we do not need. When I looked around, after I was like, oh, I should see if there's other accelerators and incubators because we're incorporated in Canada. Are there those that support AWS credit distribution if you are, what I don't want to say, admitted to the program, if you are eligible for their programs? And there are. I actually found 4 different accelerators that offer serious AWS credits. And this is at the lowest range, $100,000. That would be transformative for us, to the upper range of $700,000, which would be silly. That would be silly. If we had that, it can change the way in which you start your whole strategy, because since you have the credits covering the operating cost, you could way lower the prices of things initially so that you had that less of a barrier of entry for people to try it out. And then, well, you've seen it with Netflix, right? You get your subscribers, same with Disney Plus. Take a couple of years so people can see what your service is like. It's proven itself, the gate's been wide open, and now you can increase your prices a little bit to account for the fact that you do have so many people using the infrastructure. So 4 different opportunities suddenly appeared after the conversation with AWS. So that was really, really exciting. I'm jazzed. I'm jazzed for that, and I have yet to do the actual applications, but I'm going to be all over it this week. I mentioned as a semi-closing, maybe this is the second half of the video now, but other things that I wanted to talk about just in terms of our development. So we have our application separated into modules. That's just an in-house jargon to say a module is a significant experience within our application. And that's how we broke it apart so that we could have focused development that followed a sequential order and made practical sense. We have proceeded now to the most, I would argue, the most demanding part of our application, where if you're going to make a story, you need to be able to provide the application your choices that will shape that story. And we just had our all-hands meeting today. We all got together and Mohammed went and showcased that for us. And it was amazing. The progress that this team has made, it makes my heart soars like an eagle, as my father says, and I'm fond of saying now. To see that kind of collaboration with this kind of amazing result, it's really heartwarming. And this takes us to, I would say, about 40% completion. We're going to wrap up. There's loose ends and there's always more to do, polish, iterate in each module that we complete. But even in the form that it's in is so, so encouraging. This will then lead us to, I think it's going to go pretty fast, is we have a dashboard experience. So once your child would get in and start to move around the app, they need to be able to see what are some other stories that I could read, what are some other characters that I might want to create a story with. There's that. But then we go on to maybe the most important experience at all. Although it's all a toy, it should all be fun. That's another founding value that I have. It is toy-like. Every part of the interaction with it should be fun. But of course, reading is kind of the end goal of this, is that you make stories and you read stories. So we will be moving on to the reading experience soon, and this will require us to actually have our AI models in place. And we now have chosen all the AI models. I've done all the research on them. I've created manuals using AI to be able to create a sort of deployment checklist that would allow you to get this thing onto AWS. And then for every subcategory on the deployment checklist, I've created its own dedicated document. So you can imagine if you had like set up stage 1 and 1.1 and 1.2. For 1.1 and 1.2, where they're just bullet points in the to-do list, you then take 1.1 and dedicate an article to it. And these articles in total will comprise a manual by the end of it. So I've done that for each of the models so that we can rapid attack this in a really good, efficient manner. And we're very, very excited about the models that we've chosen because they're cool for all these different reasons. Whether it's like that they're efficient, whether that they're cutting edge, whether that they just give you a cool functionality that I think will be a lot of fun to interact with when you're using Dreambook, when you're using the app. They're great. So myself and Andrew will be going into a conversation tomorrow where research done, let's talk about deploying these models, let's get this up in the air, and very importantly, let's do a cost analysis of if you generate a story, it's got X number of images, how much is a single story going to cost you? Because you need to know that if you're going to have any sort of effective forecast of what your costs are. I was thinking about going into the models more specifically, but for today, because I've gone on at length a little bit with all of the other details, I'll wrap it up there. But if you have any questions about this, that, or the other thing, Life in Japan, the company, what we're doing, AI models, I'm now getting pretty good with them. Please do either write me a message or send me an email. That's all posted on the site. But I appreciate you very much tuning in. It's been so exciting to be back speaking in front of the camera again and sharing what's going on in my life. And it has been a lot of fun forging this new reality with these great people that I have around me now. And I think it will only become cooler because I'll save it for another video, but Dreambook will not simply be North American. There's no reason for that at all. It could be found in other countries, maybe Japan, and then not just would you have an experience where you created stories, but I see a real potential for it being customized to include an experience where it would help ESL development. So English as a second language, we could get into there. But I'll discuss those details a little bit later. We're just getting the ball rolling with that, trying to be preemptive, and all in due time we will discuss it. That's all for now. Thanks for checking out the video. I will catch you in the next one. Hug the ones you love. Take care.